I'm gonna be festival.
The support of networks and economic security of many of our LGBTQ SGL elders, leaving us vulnerable for housing instability at a critical point in our lives. At Mary's House for Older Adults, we often receive cries for help for housing for an LGBT elder. Case showed us $400 to $450 per month asking us, can we help? And we know that in a recent national investigation, almost half, 48% of older same-sex couples experience at least one form of adverse differential treatment when inquiring about housing. 1 in 4 transgender older Americans report discrimination when seeking housing. And 78% of older LGBT people are interested in living in LGBTQ-friendly, affordable housing. That's why SAGE is doing with its National LGBT Elder Housing Initiative, where Mary's House is for older adults is a partner. We refuse to be invisible or allow the voices and issues of older adults be erased, because if we all live, we're all going to get old. Is that right? Can you help? Yes, you can. Consider elders in all the work and play that we do. Seek their counsel. Hear their issues. In all likelihood, they've been there and done that, but maybe just not on an iPad. I'm just saying that remember all our communities, young and old, and the intersectionalities that exist. We all need safe and brave spaces to thrive. Thank you.
When I was working to create SAGE 40 years ago, people said it might be fun to be gay when you're young, but wait until you're old and have no family. I wanted to prove them wrong, and so we created SAGE, an intergenerational community that provides LGBT grandparents like me for all the young people today who are searching for affirmative role models. And we've had great success. Aging is, for many of us, the best time of our life, and it is fun. Together, older LGBT folks have raised their voices and demanded to be advocacy they need and deserve. We refuse to be silent. We refuse to be invisible. We refuse to go quietly. Never again. However, this past March, the Trump administration erased LGBT elders from a vital national aging survey. This survey helps decide how funds are spent for older Americans. If LGBT people like you and me are erased, how will we be counted? SAGE has now adopted the slogan, "We refuse to be invisible," because we must not hide. We must not give up our rights and accomplishments our pioneers fought so hard for. Our elders built this movement, and our resilience, our resolve, and our experience will lead us forward. Today's LGBT older people deserve high-quality aging services. They are twice as likely to live alone, twice as likely to be single, and 3 or 4 times less likely to have children, and many are estranged from their biological families. Don't let the Trump administration erase them from the surveys that allow them to receive the services they support and need. Speak up. Speak out. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Thank you to the organizing committee for putting this together, inviting me to participate, and the kind folks of DC for creating safe space for us to congregate, demonstrate, educate, and celebrate with one another. As we march today, I want to take a moment to remember the transgender, bisexual, gay, lesbian, and queer lives that cannot be with us here today. Let us continue our work to end HIV/AIDS and its stigma, to end violence against the transgender community by valuing and centering the lives of trans women of color and femmes of color, the most marginalized group within our community, and yet the very people who have long been our movement leaders. Let us honor those we have lost through tragedies like Pulse, which we will be remembering tomorrow on its 1-year anniversary. I am here today as a proud Mexican, Irish, American, bisexual, queer woman, and I am for this intersectional movement for equality, unity, and pride. The lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer plus communities stand for equal rights has never been about just one person, one lived experience, or one identity. Our struggles are shared, and our resilience unrelenting. I am grateful to our bisexual leaders who have marched and protested and organized for the LGBTQ plus community, from Sylvia Rivera at Stonewall to Brenda Howard, who in 1970 organized the Christopher Street Liberation Day March that inspired the creation of annual pride parades across the world. From local bisexual icons like Lorraine Hutchins to A. Billy S. Jones-Hennon, from Stephen Donaldson, who founded the first ever student gay rights group at Columbia University in 1967, to bisexual activist Lani Ka'ahumanu, one of the key organizers of the 1993 March on Washington, the only bisexual to speak at the event, and who marched alongside Harvey Milk for our rights. Those of us who love more than one sex and or gender use many different labels, but we share a common experience. Our presence makes people uncomfortable. We exist in gray areas that if folks sometimes deem as not gay enough or not straight enough. If we are in monogamous relationships, we are viewed as having chosen a side. If we are polyamorous, we are seen as being damaging to the cause. Our very existence threatens heteronormativity and the gender binary. The bisexual plus community has long recognized our intersections with the most marginalized groups within the LGBTQ plus community. We are bisexual, pansexual, asexual, intersex, trans, non-binary, bigender, agender, two-spirit, old, young, black, brown, indigenous, Asian Pacific Islander, poor, disabled, immigrants, undocumented, asylum seekers. And whether it pertained to race, age, your chosen label, your gender identity, or any other perceived disparity, we have stood in solidarity with you. We ask you to stand in solidarity with us. Based on recently published reports from organizations like the CDC, the National Institute of Health, and the Movement Advancement Project, bisexuals now have higher rates of mental illness, sexual assault, domestic violence, and poverty than gays. Half the LGBTQ plus population, but receives less than 1% of funding. This needs to change. We are in a unique position to create change through education, but we cannot do it alone. If you have conflicts surrounding bisexuals and all other non-monosexual identities, I ask that you face them in order to create solidarity. And do not stop there. Stand up against biphobia and bi-erasure. Let's face and end the transphobia, the sexism, and racism that plagues our community. Let's make meaningful investments in LGBTQ people of color in leadership roles. Stand with and for us as we continue standing with and for you. It is vital to our community, particularly our youth, to see themselves reflected positively. Instead of dictating their stories to them, it is so vital that we teach them to be the custodians of their own narratives. More than 20% of millennials now identify as LGBTQ, and they need our support, and we need to listen to them. We need to shut up and listen to them. With dual upbringings in Philadelphia and Atlanta, our next speaker is a 2017 True Colors Fund 40 of the 40 honoree, as well as the 2017 True Colors Fund True Production Fellow. In spite of her former experiences of housing instability, she prides herself on always setting goals and priorities and successfully implementing them. As a black transgender woman, she stands firm in her purpose as a student, musician, and community health worker at Us Helping Us People into Living, Inc. As the 2017 True Production Fellow, she will work alongside True Colors Fund staff to plan and execute the 4th annual 40 to None Summit, a convening that brings together amazing people from around the country that work to end LGBTQ youth homelessness. In her words, "The way my life has transitioned, I found myself becoming stronger in my advocacy through the talents that I possess. I feel that I was placed here on this earth to advocate the best way I can, and I allow God to guide to where that path may lead." Please give a warm welcome to Aurora Lloyd.
Good afternoon. You guys look so beautiful. Can y'all make some more noise just one more time for me? Yes. Yes. So thank you again, Sada. Thank you so much. And as Sada said, my name is Aurora Lloyd. I am a musician, an activist, an advocate, a black trans woman, and I was homeless. Did you know 40% of our youth experiencing homelessness identify as LGBTQIA? Until literally about this top of the year this year, I was a part of that 40%. And it wasn't until I moved into my own apartment that I realized I had just overcome homelessness. You see, we think what homelessness looks like is the people we see on the streets that are on the curbsides fighting to get into shelters. But as youth, that's not our reality. Our reality is best friends' couches, family members that are not our parents, couches and beds, and sometimes even our lovers. And for a long time, I spent month to month just hopping from couch to couch, from bed to bed, trying to find a home. Sorry, just taking that in. It's been a long, long road to get here, and you guys have no idea, and I'm so appreciative to be allowed to say that. You know, being a youth, you have to trust that whomever you're staying with doesn't go around saying, oh, Aurora, she's homeless, so she has to stay with me right now. No, it's more sounding like, oh, Aurora's just crashing on our couch for a couple of days. So it sounds more like a sleepover as opposed to someone who doesn't have any home to go to. Like I said, there is a crisis. 40% is a huge number. There are programs that have been built to help us deal with this in facing housing instability and homelessness, but we need more than just crisis responses. To truly end homelessness, we need to prevent it from happening in the first place, and we need long-term solutions and strategies. And most important, these solutions need to come from us, the youth that is experiencing this. Not anyone else, not the friend of the youth, not their parent, not their cousin, us. Some of the solutions, I think, we should try to make a thing, and from what I've heard, there are places that do this, is like hosting your home, going through trainings and evaluations prior to understanding what it means to host a home for an LGBTQIA youth. And if you qualify, giving them a home, opening up spaces, since we clearly see that sometimes us staying in a shelter is even more damaging. So personally, one of the ways that I am actually making this happen is being a part of the team of True Colors Fund, the fellowship program that has allowed me to co-produce the 2017 40 to None Summit. The summit is the only national conference that focuses on LGBTQ youth homelessness, and we are bringing people together from all around the world to learn from each other, and most importantly, to learn from us, the youth. So, as we move forward and we press on and understanding what the reality of homelessness is, we have to do something. We have to work together. We have to make a change. We can't stand here and be stagnant. The one thing I always tell people is it's not, we have to get rid of the redundant statement of, I want to help. Just go and help. Figure out what your talent is. Figure out how you can help and be able to help. You don't have to be me and do what I'm doing to help. Figure it out what you can do best and how you can apply to help anyone. Let's work together. Let's change this. Let's end LGBTQIA youth homelessness. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sue Doster, and I'm one of the national co-chairs for this march. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for standing up for equality, unity, and pride. We need you to help us now. Take out your phone. Text equality to 41444 and make a donation. Help us pay for this. Once again, text equality to 41444. We need your help to make this happen. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Hola. I'm going to ask you first to take a couple of steps closer. We need to fill up the space. Come up. I'm Catalina Velázquez. I'm an undocumented and unafraid, transgender and unashamed unapologetic Colombiana, Latina, and beneficiary of Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. I'm also one of the national co-chairs for the Equality March for Unity and Pride, and I am excited to tell you that my message to y'all is that immigrant rights are transgender and queer rights, and building solidarity is key. It's key in a world where over 80 countries criminalize people based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and when I say criminalize, I mean people get put in prison, people die for being themselves, for breathing and walking unapologetically in their truth. We, as a people, need to come together and realize that we're only going to continue to see transgender and queer immigrants coming in larger numbers, and we need to be a welcoming space. That said, I am sharing stage with a very, very, and it's humbling, friend and movement leader. He is a queer immigrant, one that has been in Washington, D.C., now working with the Center for Community Change, formerly worked with HRC, further highlighting the intersections between LGBTQ liberation and immigrant rights. Let's have a welcoming applause for Javier Cifuentes.
Good afternoon. My name is Álvaro Javier Cifuentes Monzón, and I'm a youth ambassador with the Human Rights Campaign. I was born on December 5th, 1996, in Guatemala City, Guatemala, and proudly immigrated to the United States in 2002. Growing up in Guatemala, my mother worked hard every day to ensure that my brother and I would always have everything that we needed. Although we were by no means wealthy, I was very fortunate to enjoy a happy and privileged childhood. Given this, it was difficult for me to understand my mother's decision to uproot my brother and I and come to this country. Our lives changed dramatically after we came here. My brother and I suddenly had to be careful about whom we befriended and what we shared with them. We came to worry each night whether our mother would be returning home. Most notably, we learned to live every day with a sense of anxiety and fear. You see, when my family and I first came to this country, we were undocumented. Growing up, I couldn't understand my mother's decision to immigrate to the U.S. I couldn't understand why she chose to come to this country and work as a housekeeper when she had been valedictorian back home and worked so hard to graduate from university. I couldn't understand why she chose to give up her dream house to live in strangers' basements and garages. I couldn't understand why she chose to leave her family and friends behind to come to a place where she knew no one. When I came out to my mother a decade later, I finally learned the reason behind her many sacrifices. At an early age, my mother had realized that I was queer. Fearing for my safety and knowing that my opportunities here in this country would be less limited by my identity than back home, my mother gave up her own dreams so that I could live an authentic life. I feel very proud to say that thanks to my mother's sacrifices, I am now living the American dream. Today, I am an American citizen and was just admitted to Harvard University. And can I just say, I am so proud to be an American. I am so proud to be an American. I've also had the opportunity to reconcile my queer identity with my Latinx and immigrant identities. The same cannot be said for many of our LGBTQ siblings who remain undocumented. I'm standing here today because I understand the anxieties that our undocumented LGBTQ brothers and sisters face in light of the new administration. I'm standing here with you today because I've witnessed the pain that comes with deportation. I'm standing here today to ask you to join me in uniting resisting, and enlisting against those who wish to harm immigrants and other marginalized groups within our community. We must unite against bigotry. The LGBTQ community's greatest strength is its diversity. Yes, we're trans, queer, bi, lesbian, and gay. But we're also of diverse ethnicities and backgrounds. We're native-born, immigrants, and refugees. Together, we make the most vibrant family in this nation. We must resist the countless attempts that have been made by this administration to divide us. Donald Trump knows that we are stronger together, and this terrifies him. We must never let him use immigrants and refugees to tear our community apart. We must not let him win. Finally, we must willingly enlist in this fight. Growing up in the shadows and the closet, I never thought that I would be standing here today. Yet I recognize the responsibility that I hold, now that I've become an American citizen, to use my voice to ensure that the fears of my undocumented brothers and sisters do not become reality. You don't have to get up and speak in front of hundreds of people to make a difference, but it's necessary to use your voice to create change. You see, when I first realized that Donald Trump would be our next president, my first thoughts didn't go to all of the difficulties that my family and I encountered when we first immigrated to this country. My thoughts went to all of the good people, so many people who were willing to stand up for us along my family's journey as immigrants. Although these are difficult times for the immigrant and LGBTQ communities, seeing all of you here today, I have never felt more hopeful in my life. Everyone here possesses the power and the responsibility to help preserve the gain that our community has made in the last decade. We must protect these gains. We must protect the most vulnerable within our community. We must remain each other's fiercest allies. I ask you to join me, because history is not just watching Donald Trump. History is watching us as well. Thank you.
Hello, Washington. It's an honor to be marching with you today. I'm Charlie Carver. I'm an actor and a proud gay man. And I am lucky in that when I came out publicly, my fans welcomed that with open arms. I am also the son of a gay man, and I watched my father struggle with his identity for reasons I did not have to, thanks to the tireless work of our elders and activists. So I want to acknowledge that it is with some extraordinary privileges that I am up here speaking with you. As the creator of the flag, Gilbert Baker, reminded us, may he rest in peace. The rainbow we march under today serves to say, among other things, that we LGBTQ people are of nature, that we are natural, and thus entitled to the same inalienable rights endowed to all human beings in this country. Every gain towards full equality that we have made so far has not been granted to us as a kindness by those in power. It is not their gift, but our own hard-won reclamation of our natural birthright. So we will march today to let this administration know that we will not stop in that fight until we as a community have full equality, protections, and safety under the law. But our liberation as individuals and as a community is also bound up in the mutual liberation of all. We must therefore confront the racism, prejudice, and hegemonic thinking in our own community and learn how we, even unintentionally, perpetuate those violent systems. And so we must also try to amplify with whatever platforms we have the voices that too often go unheard. And we must welcome those same voices to lead. Indigenous and First Nations peoples have long been the leaders in pushing the boundaries of gender and sexuality as the original inhabitants of this land. Today, Indigenous and First Nations peoples are leading important movements around the world, like the recent and ongoing uprising in Standing Rock. So we here today stand with Standing Rock and with Indigenous and First Nations movements worldwide. It is my privilege to introduce the next speaker, water protector Tomas Lopez. Tomas is a member of the International Indigenous Youth Council and was arrested at Standing Rock protecting our water. So please give him your warmest welcome.
Everyone's really tall. Wobila tonkashila, wobila oyate. Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to be here. Thank you to our Creator for allowing us all to stand on this land today. I want to start by thanking the Indigenous people of this hemisphere and Indigenous people all around the world that sacrificed their lives, their culture, and everything so that this culture could rise to the top. I want to remind everybody that anywhere you go in this world, you are on Indigenous ancestral land. Every step that you take, every move that you make, every word that you said is heard and is felt by the Indigenous ancestors that were murdered in this land, in these lands. I also want to thank my family, my mother and my father, for always standing by me and supporting me through thick and through thin. Growing up an Indigenous Two-Spirit man, I was very silenced. I grew up in a community that was predominantly white, who was constantly telling me that who I was not good enough. Not only was I told that me as an indigenous man was not good enough, but me as a millennial, me as a 90s baby was not good enough. That my generation were lazy, we weren't good enough, we couldn't do it, and that the world was surely to perish in our hands. I was told this repeatedly by my older generations, and I'm continued to hear it every single day. I'm here to tell all of the youth out there, that is a lie. That is a lie. Our generation is one of the most powerful, outspoken generations this world has ever seen. And I beg of you, do not sleep on the seventh generation because they have so much to offer. We forget that so much can be learned from a baby. Unconditional self-love. A baby loves him or herself so much that they will put their own foot in their mouth. We forget these things. As we grow older, we start to hear more and more sides of the story. We begin to find our own voice. And all of this time while we were speaking, we forgot to listen. So I'm asking everybody here, it's time to look to these younger generations, and it's time to listen to them. This is specifically to all my little sisters and brothers out there, my LGBTQ plus sisters and brothers, my trans sisters and brothers. I want you to know this. You are seen, you are heard, and you are loved. In this society, we're taught that when something's broken, we discard it. We need to stop looking at each other as broken and start looking at each other as people. Nobody is broken, and instead of pushing each other away from the community, we need to start bringing each other back in, back to the fireplace, and we need to start the healing there. Not only do we need healing on an individual level, we need healing as a community. A year ago, tomorrow, we lost 49 lives. Beautiful, beautiful lives. And that trauma, whether you were in Orlando or not, is with you. Every single one of us knew what it was like to be in a club, to be with the people that you love, to be expressing yourself freely, and for someone to come in and stop you. That trauma is with us. But this right here is where we heal. This is where we begin that healing with each other. It's prophesied in the Lakota tradition that the 7th generation would be the one to unite the world. And right now, we're living in the 7th generation. The prophecy is unfolding itself before our eyes. And every single one of you is a part of it. Every single one of us plays an important role in this revolution, and everybody's role is of the utmost importance. It may be cliche, but together we stand, and together we will rise. To all my marginalized communities within this marginalized community, my black brothers and sisters, my brown sisters and brothers, my trans sisters and brothers, anybody with different abilities, people that are shamed for their bodies, I'm here to tell you, your existence is your resistance. Continue to exist. Continue to fight. Continue to be as gay as you possibly can. Because you know what? We are unapologetic. We are not going anywhere. And you will continue to hear our voice loud and clear. Individually, you are only one stone. But together, we are a mountain. When I was in Standing Rock, I was arrested for praying. And in that moment, when they kicked me to the ground and told me to quit resisting, one thing came into my head. No matter which way the wind howls, the mountain will never bow to it. So I invite all of you now, lock arms, stand together, and we will be the unmovable mountain that nobody has ever seen. We will be the unmovable mountain that will change the world. We will be the love that we so desperately need in our hearts. I just want you all to know that you don't have to be up here speaking in order to be an activist and make change. You don't have to be at the front lines in order to be someone of importance. You don't have to be arrested at Standing Rock to know that water is life. You don't have to be arrested at a Black Lives Matter movement to know that Black Lives Matter. It starts here. It starts here in our minds, in our hearts, and in our souls. And with that, I want to let you all know that I love you. I want you all to know that I have your back and that I will come to your community when you call me. The International Indigenous Youth Council supports all movements. We know that Black Lives Matter. We know that women are empowered. We know that children have voices. We know that trans people are beautiful. We believe that Palestine should be free. We believe that refugees are welcome where they want to go. And we know that water is life, no matter the color of your skin, no matter who you choose to share your body with, no matter what language you speak or what political party you choose to follow. Our blood runs red. And we have to take care of each other as the Tioshpae that we see before us, the tribe that we see before us, the family that we have created. Thank you so much for listening to me. And remember, love your children, kiss your children, and let them know that they are power. Aho, mitaki oyase, all my relations.
Hello, DC. Hello. Hello out there. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Sarah Kate Ellis. I'm the president and CEO of GLAAD, which is the world's largest media advocacy organization. and our visibility is more important than ever today. We must stay visible and fight back against the administration that seeks to erase our hard-fought progress and attack us at every turn. GLAD stands with you all together to resist the forces that try to divide us and to push LGBTQ acceptance forward. The current administration, friends, if you haven't noticed, is trying to erase us from the American fabric, but we will not be silenced. We demand with all marginal communities to stand together and be visible. The LGBTQ community is Black, is Jewish, is Latinx, is Muslim, differently abled, bi, trans, and non-binary. We are women, we are immigrants, we are in every community, and we will stand united. So if the White House does not protect our trans youth in schools, we will. If they won't pass health care that helps us all, we will. If they won't speak out about LGBTQ murders in Chechnya, we will. And if the White House refuses to recognize LGBTQ Pride Month, let's show them how it's loud. Be proud. Now I am so honored to introduce Asia Kate Dillon, the first out non-binary actor on TV. Media, we know, can change hearts and minds, and our visibility is vital at this time. Asia has inspired so many with their work on the TV show Billions and Orange is the New Black. Join me in welcoming Asia Kate Dillon to the stage.
Hi. My name is Asia Kate Dillon. I'm honored to have been invited to speak on this historic day. I am the first non-binary gender-identifying actor to play a non-binary gender-identifying character on a major television series. Thank you. Because of my role, I have received increased visibility, which is a privilege for which I am grateful. So, I want to acknowledge all the people who do not feel safe being visible. I want to acknowledge all the people who were not able to be here in the streets with us today. By lighting a candle at home, watching on your television or computer, or simply by being kind to yourself and to others today, you are a part of this extraordinary movement, because this is a movement that is built on love. I also want to acknowledge, in particular, trans women of color who live at the dangerous and often deadly intersection of racism, sexism, and homophobia. 12 trans women of color have been murdered this year alone. Kenny McFadden, Sherelle Faulkner, Mix Bostick, Shay Reed, Alfonso Watson, Jaquarius Holland, Sierra McElveen, China Gibson, Kiki Collier, Jojo Stryker, Jamie Lee Wounded Arrow, Misha Caldwell. Why do we march? We march to be visible for ourselves, for those who can't be, and for those who were visible before us. We march to affirm our commitment to dismantling racist, sexist, and homophobic ideological systems. Systems that were created for social, political, and economic reasons in order to separate us from our humanity. We march to affirm our commitment to the reality that assigned sex does not surpass identity. Nor should assigned sex seal our fate. When it comes to the clothing it is acceptable for us to wear, the job it is acceptable for us to have, the pronoun it is acceptable for us to use, the health care it is acceptable for us to have access to, the bathroom it is acceptable for us to use, or the people it is acceptable for us to love. We march to affirm that human beings are far more complex than we ever thought, and how beautiful that complexity truly makes every one of us. And to affirm our inalienable right as human beings that we all, trans and cis alike, deserve to be free. Whether you identify as trans or cis, you deserve the freedom to safely express yourself without the fear of ridicule or the fear of violence. I'm here today to say I have hope, because I know that freedom is contagious. I'd like to share with you just a few of the notes I've received from people of all ages from all around the world. Thank you so much for being yourself and having the courage that inspires me. When I heard you talk about being non-binary and not really fitting into the categories of he or she, so using they and them, I almost cried. You have been a massive inspiration to me. People like you make being me so much easier and so much more free. Live in your freedom and fight for the freedom of others, our greatest patriotic duty, because you never know who you will inspire to freedom next. In closing, I want to acknowledge all the people who are here in the streets today. Our physical presence, combined with the energetic presence of all hearts loyal to the cause, sends a very clear message that we, the people, united and visible, will not be divided. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. No, let's do it again. Good afternoon, everyone. There you go. We're not starting off half-ass here. Welcome to Washington, D.C., home to the country's largest LGBTQ identified residents in the country. Let me say it again. The largest LGBTQ identified residents in the country is Washington, D.C. I am Sheila Alexander Reed, Director of the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs. I'm also founder and president of the board of the Women in Life Association, which serves as a social justice organization for lesbians of color and queer women of color. Thank you, that's good. But today, I stand before you as a longtime advocate and friend of the unstoppable Mandy Carter. For those of you who do not know, let me just tell you, her bio says, Mandy is an out Southern African-American lesbian whose social justice activism spans 50 years. She was first inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Poor People's Campaign in 1968, when she became committed to nonviolent activism. Mandy was the national coordinator of the Bayard Rustin Commemoration Project. She helped found the National Black Justice Coalition. And furthermore, she co-founded Southerners on New Ground, also known as SONG, which integrates the work against homophobia into freedom causes and LGBTQ people. In March 2015, Mandy helped organize broad and diverse participation in the 50th anniversary Selma to Montgomery Voting Rights Act. So that's just a small snippet of what her bio says. What her bio doesn't say is that Mandy is an unsung hero of the Black and the overall LGBTQ movement. Before Stonewall, there was Mandy Carter. Before HRC and the LGBTQ task force were household names, there was Mandy Carter. Before Ryan White, there was Mandy Carter. Before marriage equality was a thought, an act, a right, a reality, there was Mandy Carter. People think that DC is the eye of the storm because down the street there's somebody named 45 looming over us, passing legislation that legalizes discrimination, promotes hate, bigotry, racism, you name it. But let me tell you, the eye of the storm is not in DC. DC has more protections against for its LGBTQ community than any other jurisdiction in the country. And I am proud to say that it's my job to make sure we enforce all of those laws that protect us. The eye of the storm is in places like Texas. The eye of the storm is in Mississippi. The eye of the storm is in North Carolina. And North Carolina is where Mandy Carter is each and every day, facing that eye of the storm, sometimes by herself. There are no protections. The laws are written specifically to promote discrimination. You don't get to use the bathroom of your choice, of your gender identity in North Carolina like you do in DC. You can't walk the streets safely thinking someone's going to help you if you're assaulted, if you're LGBT in North Carolina. So the eye of the storm is not here, it's in North Carolina, and those women here, this unstoppable living legend, this badass shero, Mandy Carter, since 1968, has been fighting for us. I want you all to give her a fucking resounding applause. Mandy Carter. Fucking get up there. Fuck yeah. God damn it, stop, girl. Woo! There you go. Get a boo.
Thank you, my sister Sheila. I don't know about those last words, though. I mean, my ears are kind of hurting with the F word and the what word?
You earned it.
All right, you're all right. First of all, how many people were on this mall 1987? Does this mall look familiar to you? The 87 March on Washington. Back again in 1993. Back again in 2009. My remarks, and that too, my remarks are going to be brief. I bring you greetings from and on behalf of the great state of North Carolina. Any North Carolinians in the house, please raise your hands. And all of our Southern sisters and brothers, because as they say, so goes the South, so goes this country. I'm bringing you really good news about North Carolina, so-called that anti-trans House Bill 2. You need to know that the Republican sitting governor of Pat McCrory is gone because he did not get reelected. And that's the first time in the history of the state of North Carolina when a sitting Republican governor never did get reelected, but now we have a Democrat in the governor's house, a Democrat as the Attorney General as well. The other good piece of news, you might have heard about it, is called the Moral Monday Movement. And because of the opposition, I think people need to realize when you start putting things out that are against anything with your name of it, and you pull those very same people together, that's the kind of unified effort that we have to make. And because of HB 2, we have pulled together one of the most amazing statewide, 100-county-wide movement called the Moral Monday Movement. And what it's about is about a focus of an advancement of a broad, inclusive human rights agenda. But here's probably the most important news. Where's the U.S. Supreme Court? Where is it? I know there's right there. Take a look at it. Because of the U.S. Supreme Court, we've got two major groundbreaking decisions. It all has to do with racial, gender racial gerrymandering of our congressional districts and our 100-county state legislative districts. They have been turned back. And the reason why this makes good news is because once that happens in North Carolina, that can happen in Texas, in Florida, in Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi. So in closing, I want to just say that when I think about this mall on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, August 28, 1963, 63 March on Washington for Peace and Justice, and we saw Dr. King give his famous I Have a Dream speech. But that was organized by black gay activist called Bayard Rustin. And if anyone was there 50 years ago, I doubt if anyone could have imagined. And that was a Wednesday, August 28, 1963. 50 years later to the day, August 28, 2013, our first African-American president stood on that exact same steps and said these words in terms of understanding and had a second inauguration. From Seneca, women, to Selma, people of color, to Stonewall. What else do you need to know? So I'm going to give a chant that we say with our I'm going to give a chant that we use with our Moral Monday movement. I'm going to say it 3 times. I'm going to do it once so you know how it goes, and then we'll say it 2 more times. The Moral Monday movement chant is this: forward, together, not one step back. Say it with me. Forward, together, not one step back. One more time. Forward, together, not one step back. Thank you.
The most incredible woman I know and an amazing leader, my wife and Emilia's mother, Angela Farrell Zabala.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you to my lovely wife and Amelia. My other 2 teenage kids couldn't be here today, so wish they were here. So first, can we get some love? Can we give some love to the co-chairs of this march and all the folks that worked to pull this together? This incredible group of people sought to mobilize, represent, and uplift a diverse LGBTQ community, something that doesn't happen as regularly as it should. I'm Angela Farrell Zabala, Director of Strategic Partnerships at Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Yes, come on now. I'm so proud to be here today on behalf of Planned Parenthood, on behalf of queer families, particularly queer families of color across this country. So folks have asked, why is Planned Parenthood supporting this? Or even better, what is the connection? LGBTQ rights and reproductive rights and justice are deeply connected to justice for all. First, we are not separate from this community, in that many of our own staff, providers, as I am, are part of the queer community. Thank you. A couple claps there. We are providers of health care and deeply believe in care no matter what. We provide vital health care services to all people regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. In 17 states, we offer hormone replacement therapy for trans patients, and we expect that number to grow. We provide HIV testing and link those that need it to care. Some of our healthcare centers offer PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylaxis, and we're committed to expanding that service. As the largest provider of sex education, we also believe in sex ed that covers a full range of topics affecting sexual health and meets the needs of LGBTQ youth. We provide sensitive and accurate information, education, and resources on sexual orientation, gender and gender identity to youth, parents, and people of all ages every day. All the progress we've seen in this country on LGBTQ rights is rooted in principles that also underlie reproductive rights. Politicians should not be in the business of deciding what we do with our bodies or what our families look like. Plain and simple. And those rights should never depend on which state we live in. We believe that everyone deserves a sex life that is healthy, happy, and free from shame and stigma. And that every family is unique and deserves to be recognized, supported, and valued. One important journey that I'm witnessing in both the reproductive rights and LGBTQ movements, respectively, is the critical need to center, listen to, learn from, and be in reciprocal partnership with those among us that are most impacted and marginalized. That means people of color, trans communities, and others that face increased threats for merely living intersectional identities. The reproductive rights community is continuing to learn from the teachings of Black women and women of color and the reproductive justice movement, who have long proclaimed people's right to safe environments and healthy communities without fear of violence from individuals or government. As profoundly stated by one of my sheroes, Audre Lorde, we cannot have single-issue movements when we do not live single-issue lives. That is so important. So I don't know if you've heard or not, but this administration and Congress, along with state legislatures, are doing everything they can to strip away our rights and diminish our hard-fought freedoms. The list is long, but I'll name only a few. Access to health care, as they're working around the clock to ensure the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, which, by the way, contributed to the increase in access for LGBTQ people living with HIV. They want to gut Medicaid and prohibit those using Medicaid from going to Planned Parenthood, which I believe is so astonishing and disturbing, as you know, many of these patients, this is their entry point to the healthcare system, and they are getting in the way of that care. They are rolling back or continuing to push efforts to roll back guidance around Title IX, essentially allowing schools to discriminate against trans students. And we can add to this long list with continued attacks on voting rights, attacks on immigrant communities, and insistence that xenophobia is a core tenet of this country, which I disagree with. The only way that we're going to win and ensure that our people are no longer under constant attack is by this radical inclusiveness, because those that are in opposition to us, are in power, are counting on us to be divided. As Planned Parenthood, we are here, and I'd go out on a limb to say we are mostly pretty queer, and we're in this together. And last, I would love you to join me in some call and response. There is a shero of mine, Monica Simpson, from Sister Song, fantastic. And this is her quote. She usually sings it. I'm not going to do you the pleasure of hearing my not so lovely voice this afternoon. It's already hot. I don't want to torture you anymore. So just repeat after me. We must fight for freedom. We must fight for justice. It will take all of us to get to the other side. We must fight for freedom. We must fight for justice. It will take all of us to get to the other side. Thank you, beautiful people. I love you. Keep resisting.
I am Sean Coleman. I am one of the national co-chairs of the Equality March. So I'd like to welcome you. It is so wonderful looking at this diverse crowd. I'm also the founder and executive director of an organization called Destination Tomorrow in the South Bronx. I want to shout out the New York City contingency that made their way down here, right? New York is in the building. We're representing, baby. Folks are asking me, Sean, why did you want to be a part of this Equality March? Where do trans people fit in at this Equality March? More importantly, where do black trans people fit in at the Equality March? And my answer was, you have to be there. You can't get fed if you're not at the table. And I'm going to make sure that black trans people are always at the table and will always get what we need. But I need your help, right? Solidarity is one thing. Accountability is even more important. It's wonderful to stand here and say, we're going to do this and we're going to do that moving forward. But we need to make sure we hold ourselves and these organizations who've sponsored these events accountable to black trans people, to trans people, and to the larger LGBT community. As a black trans man, I'm open and honest about who I am and who I love, right? And how I live. That is what I do at Destination Tomorrow. We work with young people, 13 to 24, and we have a special focus on trans masculinity. So my goal is to always be visible, to always make you understand that, yes, my sisters, oh my God, 12 trans women have been murdered in this year alone. Why? Where's the outcry? Why is no one speaking about it? If it was any other community, we'd be up in arms. We wouldn't just be marching here, we'd be tearing things down. I need that same kind of rage the next time a black trans woman is murdered. I need you to show up the next time a black trans woman is murdered. But I also need you to make sure that you do not forget black trans men. We're here. We have needs. And no one's addressing our needs. I am going to make sure that changes. I am going to make sure I hold folks accountable to my brothers. I'm really not that angry. I promise you I'm not. Just a little passionate about the significance of being here. So again, I thank you all, and I have the distinct honor and pleasure of introducing my trans Latina sister, Consuela Lopez, who is an activist, a businesswoman, and an elected official. She's going to tell you more about herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Consuela Lopez, and I'm a proud transgender woman of color. I am the president and co-chair of Casa Ruby, which is one of the first organizations that was trans-led to help our community, and particularly transgender women of color. I'm also a political appointee for the DC Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs, and I'm a transgender woman standing at the table. And I'm having our voices heard. Today I talk to you about transphobia. And excuse me if I get teary-eyed because this is my life. Transphobia made me drop out of high school, okay? Transphobia made me drop out of college because of the bullying and all the stuff that took place. Transphobia made me change my career. I wanted to be something else in life, and the doors just kept shutting down. Transphobia got me fired. Transphobia didn't give me the job that I wanted. And this is a real-life problem that's taken in America. Every 29 hours, a transgender woman of color is murdered in Central and South America and North America. And that's a number that really, really should hit home to our community. Our community knows about this. The LGBTQ community knows that transgender women of color face discrimination, violence, and most important, murder. We hold you accountable now to make a difference in our community. You know, in our community, 89% of trans women in the DMV are survival sex workers due to transphobia. But let's not look at that as them being sex workers. Let's look at their customers. Who is paying them to give them, and it's the same people who show the transphobia. 60% of my friends are no longer here due to transphobia because we've been violently attacked. I have lacerations from transphobia. I have lived in the city since 1983. I've seen this city change. We've come a long way, but we definitely got a long way to go. There is a lot of discrimination that takes place, so the 89%, there's that 11%. The 11% are unexpected paying citizens, but there was a study done in Washington, D.C. called Trans Resumes that over 50% of businesses discriminated with trans people and hired someone with less qualifications and a cisgender person. So, I mean, the racism and the discrimination is blatant, and we have to do something about it. The people who face the worst are the black transgender women of color. They're the ones that are really being discriminated and violently murdered, more normal. And I think we all know this. Why aren't we doing anything about this? I mean, our community knows. You know, when you speak from the heart and when you sit there and tell your story, it is great to be me today, but the journey to get here was no joke. And I am a proud transgender woman. I owe a lot of my, of my activism to Casa Ruby. Casa Ruby has shown me what it is to uplift a transgender woman of color. And what I've seen is that a lot of the community says that they're going to help our community, but they don't show up. Talk is cheap. It's not a retweet. It's not a Facebook like. You really have to get involved with our community, because our community is dying and we need to change. We're a marginalized community here in the nation's capital, and nothing's being done about it. And I hold it up to my community to make a change. And last but not least, I want to talking about the HIV rate that's taking place within the transgender women of color. It's staggering, and we need to really do something about it. To finish it off, look at me. I am sitting here, a proud transgender woman of color, advocating for my community and telling you that you need to listen up and listen to us, the transgender community, and follow our guidance of what we've done. You cannot put us in a situation that you think is better for us if you haven't walked 10 feet in our shoes. I just want to say thank you so much for letting me talk, and have a great day.
Clap it up for yourselves. Clap it up for yourselves. Make some noise. Make some noise. Good afternoon, Washington, D.C. Good afternoon to the folks who are here for the Equality March. And I want you to repeat after me. I believe that we will win. 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 My name is Devin Barrington Ward, and I have the privilege of serving as the president of Impulse Group DC. Alongside me, my vice president, AJ King, and my director of marketing, Terrence Equality Ford. And we're here today with a very simple but powerful message. More is required from the LGBTQ community as it pertains to ending the HIV epidemic here in the United States and abroad. Say more. More is required. We know that more is required when we have disturbing statistics like 1 in 2 black gay men are projected to become HIV positive in their lifetimes. We know that more is required when we have statistics that say 1 in 13 DC residents are projected to become HIV positive. We know that more is required when in the face of these statistics, we have a president of the United States that will propose over $300 million in cuts to HIV-related programming and funding. Over $26 million are being cut in his budget for housing opportunities with people living with HIV. Resistance is required. Say resistance. Resistance. And so it's so important that we use this march as a platform to educate people, to engage people, to not rest on our laurels. We know that more is required when we can see black trans women murdered in the streets and black gay men murdered and their killers are never brought to justice. Say more is required. And so, in closing, before I introduce someone who I've been in the trenches with in the fight for HIV, Noelle Gordon of the HRC, I would like to leave you with a quotation from the American scholar Frederick Douglass, who once stated that those who profess freedom yet depreciate agitation are those who want the crops without the plowing of the ground. They want the rain without the thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. The struggle may be a moral one. It may be a physical one, or it may be both. But there must be struggle. Power, power, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. Clap it up for Noelle Gordon of the HRC, a black gay man dedicated to the fight of HIV. Thank you so much.
Beautiful people! My name is Noelle Gordon Jr., and I'm here to end an epidemic. I'm here because even as we make tremendous progress in the fight for LGBTQ equality, who you are and where you live still has far too great an impact on how HIV is likely to affect your life. How else do you explain the fact that gay and bisexual men make up approximately 2% of the U.S. population, but more than 50% of all people living with HIV in the United States? That in certain communities around the world, transgender women have 49 times the odds of living with HIV when compared to their cisgender counterparts. These are not alternative facts, whatever the hell those are, but inconvenient truths made possible by racism, made possible by poverty, made possible by other drivers of stigma and discrimination that keep far too many of our people down in the trenches. Nowhere is this burden more severe than in the Deep South, where resources are low, but the need is extraordinarily high. Now is not the time for complacency. Now is not a time to be polite. Now is a time for action and action alone. It might even be time, some might say, to act up. Because let me be clear, people are dying today, right now, from a disease we know how to prevent and how to treat. And that, to me, is unconscionable. And it is unacceptable. And it is not okay. Not in a world where a young person diagnosed with HIV today can expect to lead a long and healthy life if they are connected to care. Not in a world where a once daily blue pill can keep you HIV negative if taken consistently and correctly. Not in a world where it's virtually impossible for a person living with HIV to transmit the virus to a partner if they've managed to keep the virus under control. Now, I may not be a person living with HIV, but I know that so many of the privileges I enjoy today as an openly gay Afro-Latino man with immigrant parents would not have been possible without the blood, without the sweat, and without the tears of people, men and women and others whose names I may never know, but whose lives continue on in each and every one of you beautiful people. So let us honor their memory today. Let us stand up for the Affordable Care Act. Let us stand up for the Ryan White Care Act. Let us stand up for PEPFAR. Let us stand up for HIV and STD funding. Let us stand up for all of the people living with HIV who demand and deserve equal and affordable access to comprehensive universal health care. If you're ready, if you're in, then I invite you to stand with the Human Rights Campaign, the Elton John AIDS Foundation, Impulse Group DC, and the countless number of men, women, and other organizers who are working around the clock to make this epidemic history. Join us by texting UNITE to 30644 to stand with us, to stand alongside us, because together, as Devin said, we will win. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your Pride. Unapologetically proud, unapologetically black, unapologetically queer.
All right. My name is Ted Jackson. I'm one of the honorary national co-chairs for the Equality March. I am so happy to be here today in Washington, D.C. to bring together a discussion on the intersection between LGBTQ+ and disability. People with disabilities are 20% of Americans across the nation. We're 1 in 4 to half of all voting households when you add in our care providers and family members. People with disabilities and the LGBTQ+ community have a common leadership, we have common history, and we have a shared history. So today, it was important to me that we have truly grassroots leaders on the stage who are doing the work on the ground. Several years ago in California, when I worked with a group called the Disability Organizing Network, I worked with 30 or so amazing, wonderful, talented disability community organizers mobilizing our community for advocacy to open doors, to increase inclusion and increase accessibility. And one of those folks was like me, a person with a disability who also identified as LGBTQ+. My friend Andy Arias was an amazing organizer, and I look up to him as someone who has really brought together these two pieces of himself, how they intersect in his work. He did amazing work in California, bringing together education systems and people in education to talk about being queer and being disabled in the classroom and our common histories. And today, here now in Washington, D.C., he still does that work in addition to his job to really bring together folks in the LGBTQ community who are disabled to talk openly about accessibility, to talk openly about how we can make this city and our nation and this community more accessible for all kinds of people with disabilities. So without any further ado, please welcome my friend Andy Arias.
Thank you, Ted Jackson. Woo! It's hot as hell out here. I get it. And the enthusiasm's a little low, but let's just give a shout for equality. Really. I am here. Yeah. Woo! Yes, yes, yes. Intersectionality is not a word we should just use to feel good about ourselves. It is an action step that we need to take. I moved here to D.C. a year ago, and I was appalled at the lack of access for individuals with disabilities. I have to call a restaurant to know if it's accessible for me and my friends to go into. That is appalling. Appalling. And the intersectionality between disability and LGBTQ, it's major. We fought for rights and equality at the same time, and yet the disability community is still that much further behind the LGBTQ community. And I have both voices, but I'm one person. I need my LGBTQ brothers and sisters to stand with me, because I hate to bring you all down to reality, but one day you will be in my place. You will be in a wheelchair. You will need a walker. You will need some accessibility. And you will need that access. It is realness. It is realness. Accessibility is so important. I started a group at the DC Center called DC Universal Pride, because that's what this is. This is universal pride in oneself, in a group, in a nation, access, healthcare. All those things are important because we're all going to need it. All of us. I love the fact that we're speaking on so many issues because they're so universal. We all are one. And if we stand together in love, and not just love what's similar to us or what's the same as us, that's how we're going to get through. We have to push through whatever barriers we have. I am a Hispanic LGBTQ person that grew up in foster care, and now I work in DC. So anything you need that you don't think is possible, just reach inside yourself and cut the shit and do it. Just do it. We are all here for a purpose. So as you clap and as you realize your moments, take action. Take the smallest action to move forward. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, DC. Good afternoon, DC. My name is Amy Loudermilk, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs at the Trevor Project. The Trevor Project is the leading national organization providing crisis intervention and suicide prevention services to LGBTQ youth. And rest assured, we will not stop fighting for LGBTQ youth in this era of hate. To get to our youth, you have to go through us, and we will not back down. Now, when you hear me say the word policy, you probably think of that big building behind me. And that's right. Policy and legislative issues often feel a world away from us. But there are some of us, including myself, working day and night to make sure that the policies that get passed here in Washington are ones that make our community better. Both Chase Strangio of the ACLU and Sarah McBride of the HRC, the first openly transgender person to address the Democratic National Convention, have been working hard to make that happen.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. It is such an honor to be here. My name is Chase Strangio, and I have the privilege of working at the ACLU, of fighting back against the systemic injustice that is the centerpiece and cornerstone of our society, of fighting the attacks and the criminalization of LGBTQ communities, particularly LGBTQ people of color. But listen, this is important. The courts will not save us. If we are looking to our legal system for solutions, we have already failed in our vision. Ours is a legal system, after all, built on genocide and slave labor, structured to maintain power and control over Black, brown, and indigenous bodies. We can tinker with the rules, but that only rearranges the violence. In 2011, I had the privilege of attending an event at the Riverside Church in Harlem where Angela Davis and Ruthie Gilmore were speaking with political science professor Vijay Prashad. And Prashad said something that stuck with me that day. He said, "Every country gets the fascism that it deserves," he said. "And so too, its revolutionary task." I believe that our task is to build together, to show up for each other with our emotional labor and our extra legal survival strategies, with our visions for strength, safety, connection, and care. These are the things that have been passed on to us from our elders. Reflecting on the political climate several years ago, visionary activist and trans leader Raina Gossett wrote this, and her words are more poignant and resonant than ever. She said, "I believe this moment invites all of us not just to think about what we want to dismantle and organize against, but also what we want to defend. The ways we laugh and love and study together, the ways we come together to make meaning, our radical, irrespectable, undesirable, irresistible sociability. You are the resistance to the systems that seek to destroy our communities, that seek to target the Black and brown women and femmes of color who sparked our movements. And today and every day moving forward, I love you, I fight for you, and your beautiful bodies and visions and resilience. Thank you so much for being here."
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me hear from my queers in the shade. Good afternoon. My name is Sarah McBride. I'm the National Press Secretary at the Human Rights Campaign, and I am a proud transgender American. Today, we march at a moment of choosing for our country. And we must decide whether we will be a nation that says there's only one way to love, only one way to look and only one way to live, or whether we will be a nation where everyone has the freedom to live openly and equally. Despite our historic progress, today in America, too many LGBTQ students still wake up in the morning fearful of bullying during the school day ahead. Today in America, too many LGBTQ workers worry that living their truth could mean the loss of a job. Today, too many LGBTQ people, and particularly trans women of color, face harassment and violence for merely walking down the street as the person that they are. And my friends, we have had enough. LGBTQ people deserve full federal equality and nothing less. It is past time for Congress to protect our community, for Congress to pass laws like the Equality Act, to ensure that every person, no matter their state or zip code, no matter their sexual orientation or gender identity, can live free from violence, discrimination, and fear. Now more than ever, we must unite against hate in all of its forms. Because all of us who marched this morning, we have a message for Donald Trump. LGBTQ people, we are women, we are Muslim, we are Black, Latinx, Asian, and Native American, we are immigrants, and we are people with disabilities. And when Donald Trump attacks any one of us, he is going to hear from all of us. And that is why we can't stand by while this administration tries to deport thousands of undocumented immigrants living in America today. It's why we can't stand by while they try to gut the Affordable Care Act and rip health care away from 24 million Americans, including those living with HIV and AIDS. We can't stand by while voting rights are undermined for people of color, for older Americans, and for transgender people. On behalf of the Human Rights Campaign, the nation's largest LGBTQ civil rights organization, we need you. Now is the time to unite, resist, and enlist. So if you want to protect the Affordable Care Act, protect trans kids, and bring full federal equality for our community, then text UNITE to 30644. From Stonewall to the steps of the Supreme Court, from North Carolina to the National Mall, we have seen that when our voices are heard, when we fight and when we march, we can make the politics of fear and division, the politics of discrimination and misinformation no longer effective. And we know that our work does not end today, that we must take back the stories we hear, the energy we feel, and the hope that we hold to our coworkers and our classmates, to our friends and our family members. Because in this fight, every day matters. After all, the fundamental truth remains that no one in our community is totally equal until everyone, from the gay Muslim refugee to the queer undocumented immigrant to the transgender woman of color living right here in Washington, D.C., until every single one of us is treated with dignity and fairness. But make no mistake, that day will come. And when it does, generations from now, when our understanding of we the people finally includes all of us, a young queer student or a young trans student will grow up and learn about this struggle for justice and equality in their textbooks and never have to know what this progress felt like to all of us, because they will never know anything different. And that will be because of us, because now is our time, and together we are unstoppable. Thank you all very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Beard, and I'm the Executive Director at All Out. I'm going to be talking today about international LGBT rights. I want you to imagine you're in your home city and you're being hunted by the police. I want you to imagine that they catch you, that they bundle you into a car and take you to an illegal detention facility on the outskirts of your home city. And now I want you to imagine that you are beaten, starved, and tortured so badly you nearly die. Weeks of humiliation and cruelty that lead to you wanting to actually take your life. And your family, so incited to hatred against you, they try to kill you to protect their honor. According to witness testimony, this happened in Chechnya. This happened in 2017. From what we know, the head of the Chechen government, Kadyrov, sanctioned these outrages. And we know that the one man who could have stopped them, Vladimir Putin, did nothing or little to stop it. This is an outrage. But the world is responding. My organization, All Out, joined with our Russian partners and others to send a loud, people-powered message of resistance. 2 million of us raised our voices, and thousands contributed funds to help the evacuation of those who survived or were at risk. My colleague, Yuri, traveled to Moscow to stand side by side with our Russian partners to deliver our massive petition. They were never able to do so because they were detained by the police and the petition was confiscated. But that doesn't mean our demands are silenced. We demand that the Russian government end these horrors immediately. We demand that those responsible for the torture and murder of their fellow citizens are brought to justice with the full force of the law. And critically, we demand that the deafening silence from Trump and Pence ends and that they condemn their best friends in Moscow over these outrages. As LGBT people, we have a message today to Trump, to Putin, and to all the other bigots in the world who still try to deny us our rights and our dignity. LGBTQ people exist. We exist everywhere. We exist everywhere, and we're ready for the fight back of our lives. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've come too far and sacrificed too much to give up. If you're one of those homophobes, you should know there are millions of us around the world who are watching you, and your persecution of us must end. So today, I'm proud to stand here with LGBTQ Americans and those seeking asylum in this country as they face off against this appalling regime. And I'm also proud to stand together with those from Chechnya and around the world who the bigots have attacked and silenced. Our solidarity gives them strength. So together we rise up, and together we fight back. Thank you. The international LGBT rights movement is strong around the world because of leaders like Kyle Guliyez. He was born and raised in Azerbaijan. He left the country as an asylum seeker and is now an international advocate against